Folks, welcome back to the show. For our final conversation, I wanted to talk to a sister who is doing her part to making sure that the next generation stays connected to the great work, history, and legacy and struggle of the past generation. I'm going to be checking in with Sister Kim Poole, who is an activist, a soul fusion singer, and she's doing a phenomenal job as she's doing her part with the Teaching Artists Initiative, the Teaching Artists Institute, that was founded in 2015, where they're using art as a tool for community development. And this year, they are hosting a special project or a special trip where they're asking for young people to be a part of their tour for the Freedom Rides. And so I want to bring my sister in, Kim Poole. She's a teaching artist, soul fusion singer. Kim, thank you so much. It's good to see you after all of these years. How are you today?
I'm good, Farajii. When Haki first told me that he reached out to you and asked if I could have this opportunity, I said, Farajii Muhammad from the New Light Leadership Coalition on York Road. Listen, he took me back to high school, like real Baltimore. The poetry slam.
I want to let my culture crew know a little bit about the relationship that I have with Kim. Full transparency, y'all. She was in high school when I met this sister, and we were doing leadership training. I was the guy that trained her and so many other young people in Baltimore. Look at this full circle. She's doing the great work of teaching and training other young people using art and exposing them to our history and our struggle. And I'm old as crap.
Listen, you're getting better. You are getting better. The melanin doesn't allow you to just, deteriorate. It's that preservation element. So you'll be just fine, love. Don't you worry.
I'm telling you, it is so good to see you. First and foremost, let's talk about the Teaching Artists Institute that was founded in 2015, how you guys are using art for community development to talk about history and especially to connect this current generation to the past generation. Give us some details about this effort.
Absolutely. So we are engaged in what we call art for social transformation. So what does that mean? Art is everything. In the Teaching Artists Institute, art is not just I sing, but it's not just about music. It's not just about poetry or the traditional mediums. Art is about innovation, creativity, and design thinking, teaching every sector in society how to think with the creativity of the artist class. And so with the Teaching Artists Institute, we're vested in reminding the world from the African worldview that everything is art and everybody all the time. And so this building that I'm sitting in, my home, it is an example of art. And so it also defines the reality of the society, the art forms that we create. And so realigning our cultural trajectory is also a major part of our work in the Teaching Artists Institute. And this is how we engage the general population in our work through our tours. We are engaged in taking history off the page, making it relevant, facilitating intergenerational dialogue. I appreciate it. Like Farajii mentioned, when I met him, I was in high school, he was in college. We were doing that work, but we don't see those intergenerational relationships. I want this year, especially for us to have the elder class to, before they leave this realm, to tell their stories for themselves to the young people that are starting to believe that it never existed. I think that this is a unique time in our history, and using art as that common denominator, as that universal language to help facilitate this dialogue and communication is a part of what the Teaching Artists Institute does. And we do that in 8 countries around the world. So 6 of our countries are located on the continent of Africa. On the West Coast, we're in Ghana, Gambia, Liberia. On the East Coast, we're in Tanzania, we're in Uganda and Kenya. But there's no place like home. I'll never stop doing this work on the home front. Nas, an incredible artist, he said, you can't help other places when you ain't helped home yet. And Baltimore will I'll always be indebted to the leadership and elders of Baltimore. And I'll always come as a servant leader, ready to make sure that the generation behind me receives some of the mentorship and guidance that I did, and that I'm willing to compete with TikTok, and I'm willing to compete with video games. Because let's face it, some of these classes and these classrooms and these schools, they are irrelevant. They're culturally irrelevant. They're incompetent. They aren't prepared to engage our young people. And so I specialize in using my art to make engaging opportunities for our young people, make it incentivized so that they see the value in our culture and enjoy their time with us, learning about the history of their people.
This is fascinating, and this is so necessary, Kim. 6 continents, you're doing work all over the world and making sure that, even for Black folks and Black children in Baltimore are still getting the full experience and benefit of this. Talk to us a little bit about what can these students, when you say these freedom rides, we know that historically, and this is coming from the civil rights movement, that freedom ride encompassed a lot of different areas. So what areas does this freedom ride project cover?
Well, you know that May 4th, 1961, CORE, they took the first freedom ride out of Washington, D.C. And so our freedom ride, in the same vein, starts in Washington, D.C., even though we will be picking up young people in Baltimore. We've partnered with the Y of Central Maryland to sponsor at least 30 of them for this year on the bus. But we will also start in Washington, D.C. at the MLK Monument. Of course, we'll walk across the mall, talk about the March on Washington. They're having their anniversary this year, and then we'll head to our own museum, the Smithsonian. From there, we go into Farmville, Virginia. We're talking about Barbara Johns. She was one of the cases that were used to support or to take the Brown versus Board of Education case to the Supreme Court. It was just a young girl, 16 years old, tired of dilapidated conditions in her high school. She had an opportunity for exposure, saw how nicely other high schools, their facilities and their instruction and their materials. And she came back to her own high school and said, listen, we need to do something about the conditions that they're giving us. And they walked out. That empowers our young people to let them know, listen, you're not the future, you're the now. It's time for you to do something about your conditions, work in partnership with us. Tell us what you need in order to facilitate the change that we need. We hate to put this responsibility on your shoulders, but we're using history to show you that this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use the entitlement that you have. You're supposed to use, the youthfulness, that energy to change your environment. That's your responsibility, not just later, but now. Let us know how we can assist you in that. So from Virginia, we go down into Greensboro, North Carolina, and we talk about the sit-in movement with those 4 gentlemen that, sit in at Woolworth and said that, listen, I'm going to eat at this lunch counter today. And they did that. And they also put a lot of energy and fire. So we bring in the college, the HBCU discussion. From there, we go into the Mecca, down into Atlanta, Georgia. But while in Atlanta, Georgia, we talk about the international influence that the civil rights movement had. A lot of people tell us that the civil rights movement was history, it's back then, and most importantly, it's just our story, Black people here in this country. But our story influenced the world. And we need young people to know that they do have a culture, that, they tell us you don't have a flag, you don't have a language, you people don't have a culture. But as I travel around the world, I see hip hop. In Africa, they're wearing Timberland boots. And I wonder, it's 90 degrees outside for Farajii, and they are wearing Timberland boots. And
that's just like America then. That's just like America.
Yes. Why? Yes. My brothers and sisters, why? Why? And it's because our culture is influencing the world through our music and our food taste. And, I listened to Mike Imhotep before me. And, I love watermelon. I got to tell you, I don't know if Aaron Mark was wrong. That's not my conversation today. But I will say that our culture has influenced the world. And so while we're in Atlanta on the Freedom Rides tour, we talk about that. We talk about Kwame Nkrumah, how he went to school in Philadelphia during the civil rights movement. And then he decided after that experience, he would go back to Ghana and use that empowerment to emancipate Ghana, the first country in Africa free from colonial rule. We look at Fela Kuti, another artist after my own heart. And he heard that rhythm from James Brown. I'm Black and I'm proud. He listened to the music from us and our own description of our experience. And he empowered himself and then went back to Nigeria and said, listen, we're going to use music, zombie, oh, zombie, to emancipate Nigeria from a police state. I mean, Mariam Makeba, she married, Stokely Carmichael from SNCC. And so we in Atlanta, we illuminate some of these relationships and the influence that we had, not just in Africa, but in China, in Tiananmen Square, when they protested and rest in peace, lost their lives. We look at how they brought down the Great Wall, the Berlin Wall. So the civil rights movement has had an international influence. And so it's important that we understand that's our culture, that's ours. Holding America accountable to its projected ideals has in turn influenced the world to take a step up, right? To be a representative of the standard they say that they believe in. And so human rights and civil rights all in one.
Hey, really quickly, we got a couple of moments left, but Kim, this tour sounds absolutely amazing, super necessary, and not even just for young people. Hell, it might be necessary to do a freedom ride for adults as well, because so many of us, we don't know that history, not because we don't want to know, but because we just haven't been exposed to the opportunities such as this to learn that history. And my brother, Willie Frazier, one of my online culture crew members, he said, "Great job, Queen Kim. Question, what are your feelings on the attack of teaching Black history? Also, how are you combating this if you're running into conflict?" So we got about 30 seconds. But what do you make of this attack on our history, whether it's coming from Florida, Alabama, or some other state, or from political leadership that says, you know what, there's certain elements of Black history that we don't need to teach?
So first, I want to say, Farajii, we're facilitating intergenerational dialogue. In the African worldview, the classroom was always intergenerational. So it's definitely for adults. We're educating youth, but we're also educating families. We want you to go on this experience with your family. Bring your grandmother. And, you learning about Harriet Tubman, or you're learning about James Farmer, or somebody on the Freedom Rides Trail. But what is your great grandmother's name? What is your own history? So we're very vested in making sure that that's also a part of this dialogue. When it comes to them teaching our history, that's our job. We will teach our history. We will educate our families. We will educate our communities. Get out of our way. Give us the funding, because we pay tax dollars. I'm not asking you to educate our young people. I'm asking you to get out of our way and stop taking our resources and using them. And I'm asking other Black people to help us advocate so that we can decide what happens with our tax dollars in our school system for our learners. And so, the guys down in Florida and the ones, this is nothing new. History is repeating itself. And when you know your history, you understand this has always been the case. We have to focus on building strong institutions so that we can begin to curate our own story and narrative.
There it is. There it is. Look, Kim Poole, I truly appreciate you. It is so good to reconnect with you. How can people get more information about the Freedom Ride? What is the website or the social media that folks can follow?
Please follow us on social media. I am so bad at social media. It's like homework. I said I wasn't born in this generation, but please follow us, facebook.com/teaching artist, one word. Facebook.com/teaching artist, one word. And I know Facebook is for old people now, but if you have a business, please like us from your business page. Facebook.com/teaching artist, one word. And I am accessible. I'm not up here on a platform. Call me on the phone. Send a text message first. I don't check voicemails anymore. 443-739-0941. And listen, we're willing to sponsor elders that were alive during the civil rights movement that will come with us to help tell this story and narrate it. So if you are an elder that was alive and active during the civil rights movement and you're vested in helping your story stay alive, please contact us. Call me, find a Facebook page, send a message, because we'll pay for your expenses. Please let us know.
Kim Poole, thank you so much for coming on the show. We got to bring you back, Kim, because you sound like you got a lot more to say, and we certainly want to provide a space and a platform for you. So Kim Poole, thank you so much. Checking in from the Teaching Artists Institute, one of the great founders of this fantastic program that is teaching the next generation about our struggle. Kim, thank you so much for being